It's always an option for me to go down to Tasmania
Yeah,
because that's a state of the future because everyone knows that Queensland with climate change and everything is going to be a court case going forward.
yeah. Well, I mean, I would hold you back on the everyone knows because there's a massive debate over it. But for the purpose of this, I'd like to agree with you that I mean, I've come here as a tourist in the last couple of days, and I'm finding it very hot, almost unlivable. So I can understand that you wouldn't want it much hotter. And so the question is then, where do you go for a cooler climate?
Yeah, well, I'm picking Tasmania because I've basically worked out that maybe not in my lifetime, but in the lifetime of some of my loved ones, like
Yeah,
we talk about grandkids now. Like I've got a 2-year-old. Maybe sometime, when he becomes an adult, he's going to realise that Queensland is going to be it's untenable. It's going to be like a kill zone. But
yeah. So you're seeing Brisbane as a killing zone.
yeah,
So the wise men,
yeah. So I'm seeing
um,
Tasmania as the
yeah,
soft spot of
would go
Australia
there.
in terms of climate change because
Yeah,
there's going to be plenty of water and the actual temperature, the daytime temperature won't be coming untenable, and
yeah,
it won't be a drought zone because it'll be controlled by the Southern Ocean, the weather largely, not
yeah,
the Pacific Basin,
yeah.
which is basically your bigger problem, isn't it?
With your evading the Brisbane kill zone, your timing, how does that work? How are you going to time
Well, I
that?
just want to establish the outpost because nobody really knows when. We do know this next big El Nino cycle, this drought cycle's coming. It's a question of when and what's going to be the impact
Yeah,
on a place like Brisbane and how they're going to counter that. Like,
yeah,
are they going to employ like they do? Yeah, I've just come back from Europe actually, in like UAE, where I found out they use desal
right.
plants to get like 80% of their water. So I can see Brisbane becoming a lot like the UAE. It's all air conditioning. It's all driven by fossil fuels, really. Their air
Yeah,
conditioning, their construction, their desal plants. Yeah, that I mean that's the other thing. I realised that some of these places that I went to, um, they don't seem really what I'd call green conscious. They seem
no.
to be quite happy to use the fossil fuels that country has on offer, and which makes me think, well, climate change really is a global problem, and that's why I think after my European sojourn
Yeah,
that it's going to be no easy fix, and that's why I
no.
think really it's only a matter of time before these cities that are built in these hot tropical climates, it's just a question of time before things start becoming very difficult in terms of food, in terms of water, and in terms
Mm.
of survival.
Yeah, I mean, when I think at one point you on your holiday, which we haven't got to yet, but you went to Budapest, or and I may have been in Budapest, it may have been somewhere near there. Was there not massive floods?
Oh yeah, there was
Um,
floods all the way through Europe and through
yeah.
especially southern Austria.
So
Is
these aren't in hot places, are they? I mean, but so they're still being impacted by climate change.
Yeah.
So you don't see any climate-oriented thing that could challenge Tasmania. That's not about climate.
Well, I think it's just going to be more resilient to
Right.
the effect. I mean, it's science 101, isn't it? Just get away from what I call these hot the equator. Basically, you
Yeah.
want to get away from the kill zone. Yeah, on the on the European holiday,
Yeah.
the other thing I think that uh, is going against climate change is human beings themselves. I mean, I am part of the problem. If I sat in that plane for 14-hour stretch
Yeah.
to get to the other side of the world, that one seat is equivalent of like burning a V8 for 12 months straight, isn't it? So
Well,
I'm
yeah.
part of the problem. I Human beings want their stuff, and that was no better exemplified that the other place that I noted was in Switzerland, a place called Zurich,
Yeah.
and that was a place where you could actually literally see the money You could certainly see it on the streets because of the cars
Yeah,
that these guys. My wife used this term "boys with toys."
yeah. So these are young men, young wealthy men.
I didn't actually pay attention
All
about
right,
who actually driving things, but there was a McLaren,
right.
there were Lamborghinis, there were Ferraris, there was a
Yeah.
Mercedes Benz.
The streets, are they like autobahns? Are they conducive to driving high-powered sports cars at high speeds?
Well,
No.
I didn't really get out of
Oh,
Zurich, so I
right.
couldn't
Okay.
tell
Yeah.
you, but
Right.
I did see the wealth of a what I'd call arguably one of the world's biggest financial hubs, isn't it, Zurich?
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's one of the biggest banking centres alongside London, probably New York. So it's a massive. And I was looking myself earlier in the day, looking at Zurich because I nearly had a job there once. One of our mutual friends ran an agency that sourced contractors. And the thing with the Zurich is if you look at it, it's situated up in part of Switzerland, not far from Germany, not far from northern Italy. You're looking at it's got rivers, it's got communication lines. They're going to all of the major countries of Europe.
Yeah,
I was reading also that during the war, they were selling weapons to the Nazis, to England,
yeah,
to the French. They'll sell to anyone.
yeah,
So one of the things that I think in human nature is that if you have no scruples, no moral ethics,
yeah,
you can become very wealthy, and you will be driving the McLaren around.
yeah. They were.
Yeah, because if you're prepared to sell literally to the devil
Yeah,
to make a profit, then you're going to make a fair bit of money. Um,
yeah.
you know,
I was talking with a guy on the plane back, and he was a
yeah,
Christian, and he talked about Zurich, and he talked about this word called the mammon, which
hmm
I'd never heard before. But basically, I think it's a biblical term which means money
yeah,
or and power thereof.
yeah,
And I think probably Zurich, as much as I certainly didn't mind the place. I certainly
no,
didn't mind the UAE either. I mean,
no.
I had good time, and again, that's part of the.
Wealthy cities. Um, and I think one thing we just with the Zurich thing, I think um, one of the things now, I think, was certainly in Europe, and Switzerland is probably no different from most other European, like Italy, France, etc., where those countries are literally falling off a cliff in terms of demographic. So a lot of those young boys with toys,
Yep,
they don't have a wife or children to worry about, and they also could care less about in 100 years from now, all the sea's going to rise up and drown everyone.
yeah,
Um, there's a thing called the law of the commons, which I'm pretty sure you're familiar with, and that's what happens in any human, like infrastructure, human ecosystem,
yeah.
is that some people will not care. The sort of people who used to throw rubbish out of a car window
Okay,
and not care. Who cares? They're driving. They're probably never going past that road again.
yeah,
Um, and I think that you're finding in Europe, and this is where I even come back to your flight. You mentioned the flight.
yeah.
Um, I'd push back and say that a lot of the very wealthy backpackers that you see, if you go to somewhere like Southeast Asia, you'll see a lot of Swedes, a lot of German women, young women, and young men. Um, and these are people in their late 20s, early 30s, or even older. They're living the dream
Yeah.
because they're not getting married, they're not having kids. And they, in some ways, I'd have to say, well, okay, they got on a plane and they flew from Stockholm or Zurich to Thailand and went and got drunk, got wasted, and did shots at the local nightclub and that. On the other hand, they're not overpopulating the world. They're not going to get married and have 5 kids like their mothers probably did. So in some ways, they're contributing to climate change because they're just not going to have any kids. When they die, all the DNA goes with them, and that's a huge in the Western world. It's a huge trend. So in some ways, I wonder whether someone going back and forth a few times on a plane or driving a high-powered sports car. Not everyone can do that. Most people who drive a high-powered sports car drive into a brick wall, But the ones that are actually being trained how to drive it on a track, I'd question that I don't think that they are contributing a lot to climate change because their selfishness, in a way, is an antidote to that.
Yeah, because they're not going to be able to breed. This is
Well,
your
they don't want to
theory.
breed. They're not able to. They're not interested in it. Why would they bother?
I don't know.
They've got you call them boys with toys.
Yeah,
And some of these boys, I've seen some of them on podcasts and that they're in their 50s. They never grew up.
yeah,
They've sometimes got supermodels on each arm
yeah.
because certainly driving a Mclaren may help. Um, um, and those, and this is a trend. This is not just like it's not just for the really super rich. But so you're finding in Italy, they don't know how to reverse their population decline there. They honestly, I think they've given up. But so if all these people are driving around, and traveling the world, I honestly think, and a lot of them they'll fly to Thailand and they'll go to Pattaya or somewhere and just get high on drugs. So, I don't know that they're actually doing that much damage. And they'll laze around near a pool or something. So I probably am a bit more optimistic than you are on climate change, and also so given that, I
I
think
should
that
I should be staying in Queensland.
no. Given that, well, that's probably a good thing for you if you do go to Tasmania because
Create this outpost is what I want to
well,
do.
it's not really an outpost, is it?
For me,
Because
it will be
no, it's not an
because I
outpost.
want.
The problem is Canberra's an outpost because it's 1,000 kilometres inland, but
Yeah,
the problem I've got a cousin who has just moved to Tasmania, and she's sent me pictures of her house, which is in Hobart, looking at the shipping coming past, literally past her door, and past Bruny Island. They're literally sitting ducks. If for some reason or other, say China or some aggressive superpower
yeah,
wanted to come, and particularly if there was a climate change and say the Vietnam, the Delta, the Mekong Delta, and or the deltas that's in Bangladesh. That you're talking about if climate change, and I'm telling you that I agree with you that climate change is real.
yeah.
It's only going to take sea level going up a few inches to literally drown or put at risk millions of people living in the deltas of Pakistan, Bangladesh, and even the Mekong Delta. Now, what's going to have to happen because of the UN and we're going global? Mate,
Yeah.
what we're looking at a global government, a one world
Well,
government.
they're going to get boat refugees into Hobart.
Well, they're going to have to put them there because they're going to say, well, they've just had all their houses washed away.
Yeah,
Um, we're a one world government. There's no fat cats that get to live in some beautiful area while everyone else is drowning and starving. I was looking at the figures today, just come out today in England. There was a net 850,000, nearly 1 million people net moved to Britain last year.
yeah.
1 million people, because that's the way of the world. The people from the poor countries, whether they're affected by climate change or wars or whatever, are now going to all these countries. And so if there's a beautiful paradise, unless you could actually ban it off Twitter, ban it off TikTok, so no one knows about it, people living in, say, a flooded delta in Africa go online, they go on Rogan or someone, and they see, who's this guy? There's a guy, he's sitting with his feet up, looking at this beautiful seafront thing like a mansion.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool. He hasn't even got air conditioning on. He's just he's sitting there. It's all cool and everything. You can see a snow-capped mountain in the distance from over his patio,
Yeah.
over his veranda. And there's 1 million of us here about to starve to death because of
Oh, then
people
how
like
are they
that.
physically going to get from Africa to bloody Tasmania?
They're
And why
shipping
would
them.
they? Why wouldn't they go first? They just like go to Australia and let's go to WA. That's
No,
probably
they're
the
not
first.
stupid. Like I just read today that Western Australia and South Australia, the two states going to be hit hardest by climate change.
They will.
They're dry. They're arid states.
They are.
These people aren't stupid. Why would they go to somewhere like Perth or in a landlocked thing when they
Okay, well,
can
how are they going to get there?
in converted container ships?
Oh, okay.
They're already doing this. They're already doing this now.
Oh, so you're talking about illegal migration
No,
then?
it's not going to be illegal.
Oh, okay.
It's run under the sanction of the UN as
Ah.
asylum. It's not illegal. You're not actually allowed to use the word illegal in America at the moment. I mean, they're undocumented. They'll probably be undocumented, right? There's nothing illegal about a human going from point A to point B.
Okay.
We're all citizens of the earth, right?
Oh, well,
You can't say that someone, because they by bad luck were born in Africa or Pakistan, that they're illegal. They just were unlucky. They didn't win a lottery of life that we
I don't
won.
know. It just seems like a long way to go. I'm not too
No, it's not
sure
very far at all.
how they're physically actually going to get there.
Well, they're getting from Africa all the way up through Libya and into London.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And a lot of them they're coming on rafts. Some of them now now they've got non-profits now are hiring seagoing like full-size ships
Yeah.
and putting them on there, and now entire ships are arriving.
Yeah.
So, but this is just still a grey area. But what I'm saying is that this will be run under the August of the UN.
Yeah.
The UN are going to say, guys, we have a problem, a world problem. You guys in Australia, America, New Zealand, you fat cats lived high on the hog, and you're the ones who did this to the world.
And yeah, you're going to have to pay the price.
Move aside.
Well, you got to
make room. I'm being extremely serious here. No one's going to get to sit like Lord Muck or like a pampered royal person from the old days when the royal families would sit while the peasants starved. They're going to say, look, you've got all these roll on roll off container ships.
Yeah.
A lot of the commission fleet of those, fit them out with hammocks and like accommodation, and turn those around, have those going around, have literally one arriving in Hobart every day.
Yeah.
A container ship with maybe 20 to 30,000 people arriving
Yeah.
in Hobart. And the thing is, because how would you even defend it? Well, you're not going to defend it because it's going to be the UN not running it. But the thing is that it's much easier to bring in the Canberra. If you bring in the Canberra, the problem is where are you going to take them? To Jarvis Bay? How are they going to get to Canberra in a big container ship? They're going to probably have to go into the Sydney Harbour. But if they're in the Sydney Harbour, then they're going to hang around in Sydney, aren't they?
I don't know. I don't know what how Australia is going to react to these displaced migrants.
Well, we've seen how they react.
Well, I mean, we've seen in Europe how they had those because in Syria they had a serious climate change issue that people had to walk off the farms because it stopped raining, didn't it?
Right. Yeah.
And then all these peasants went to the cities, caused the civil war. Then the war did happen in Syria, and they went into Europe proper. To create this massive migration problem.
I wasn't sure. I didn't know about that because I thought it was the Kurdistan liberation movement that because you got ethnic contention for
what the Kurds marched into Europe. Is that what you're saying?
No, well they actually are in Europe, but the problem in Syria is that Assad, who's supported by the Russians, has been fighting the Americans who are up north, and they've been giving money to the
the Kurdish,
whatever liberation thing. But anyway, I think that's a different thing. That war's been going for over a century.
Yeah.
So it's probably a bit different.
No, I hope you're right that Queensland is in 100 years' time a viable place to live. There's no drought. There's no extreme temperature. There's plenty of water. And my son's there at the end of his life.
You can go. Your son will easily go, or not your son, but certainly your grandson.
Yeah.
Will go to Tasmania.
Yeah.
Why would he stay here to drown?
If you can get there. Because what I'm saying is, if you don't establish an outpost now, there's going to be no one be able. They'll just close the borders, won't they? With the stroke of the pen, it'll become Fortress Tasmania. If you're not already there,
no, they won't be able to do that. They're not able to do that. You can't turn away starving people.
You might.
The only people who can do that is if you're hungry
on the Titanic or something.
Hungary can do it because they put massive fences up and they shoot you if you try to get in. But most countries don't have the ticker to shoot hungry, desperate people with little babies and that wanting to come into their country.
I would have thought that sort of stuff happens all the time.
Well, not in Western countries. It happens in some countries, and those countries will become pariahs. But we're looking at a world. We're looking at a world government. It's not going to be this year. It won't be next year. But the world as it is now, with nuclear weapons and now we're getting biological weapons, and now we're getting a new weapon in Russia. There's new weapons coming all the time.
Yeah.
You can't afford to have squabbling countries now. It's a luxury because one country now can wipe out half the world.
Yep.
Certainly, Russia and America could each wipe the world out. China is not far away. China's already nearly overtaking America in power. So China will soon be able to also wipe out the world. You only need one mistake, one misunderstanding.
Danding.
So the only way to stop that is a one world government. And I hate this. I'm not a pro one world person, but I think you're going to end up with one world government.
Yeah.
And when there's one world government, you can't have people in Africa starving to death while people in Australia or Canada are out partying or, you can't have it anymore.
Yeah.
The world's too small because they can see it. That's why there's so many refugees. They go online and they see the lifestyle. You described Zurich.
I was going to say they see the dude sitting in his homemade hut out of tyres collecting water.
Yeah.
Bloody in Tasmania they're tending to the garden patch.
Yeah.
Having a home that works for him.
Yeah.
And living off the fat of the land.
And you've seen in England. I mean, at the moment, the government at the moment in England are bringing in new laws to drive people off the farms.
Yeah. Put them back into urban areas or something.
No, he wants to get rid of farms because he said it's full of rich people sitting on land that is now worth millions of dollars. And so he's bringing a new law. It's already been made. I think it's allowed the law that whenever you die, your children who would normally have inherited the farm and continue that farm that's been going for years now have to pay a high inheritance tax that'll effectively make them sell the farm and divide it up. So, because one of the other things that parallel to that, we're talking about climate change, have discovered that one of the most disgusting contributors to climate change is meat eaters.
Yep.
People who eat meat are literally starving the people in Africa who live on grain because we're having these cows and things that are emitting methane. So one of the things they're doing in Holland already is they're basically shutting down the farmers and saying, right, here's your money, we'll buy you out and we'll convert that land, your farm, will either be, they call it rewilding it, and that'll become a carbon sink, or we'll build high-rise things for because we're bringing in new migrants coming from places that have been riven by climate change. So, so I think this is where I think a lot of these things are self-solving. I get the feeling that because it's like an organism.
Well, as I say, on my recent trip to Europe, the UAE and Zurich, I came away with completely the opposite impression. That I realised human beings are interested into what this guy on the plane called the mammon. The money. They're driven by money. Yeah. All humans. I'm driven by money. That's part of the problem.
I would dispute that.
And power.
Yeah. No, you're not driven by money or power. Neither am I.
We wouldn't be sitting in this Earthship talking about climate change.
So there are people who aren't. There are people who are not driven by money or power.
But the point is, none of these countries are interested in reducing carbon emissions. They're interested in growth and basic bottom line P&L.
But have you seen what they've done now in Zurich? I mean, in Switzerland, they've brought in a new law. I only know this because I was reading it just before. You now have a limit. Every family has a limit to how much carbon they produce. And as soon as that is hit, they have to stop. Yeah. That's it. You can't even drive your car.
Is it?
So this is in Switzerland.
That's in Switzerland, I know. But their money is driving external countries' economies, and it's those other countries are doing all sorts of
Yeah, but the thing is, if you look at China, which is a communist country,
or even a place like Queensland. I mean, almost we've got this little thing called the Galilee basin, which is one of the biggest coal deposits in the world,
right?
And we're quite happily digging that up, putting it on a train and selling it to these other countries, and they're putting it into coal furnaces.
Yeah, but would they not buy it somewhere else? Would they not buy it from Brazil or somewhere or some other country.
I don't know, but
Um,
the point is we are, as a state, as a country, a part
yeah.
of the problem. It's not as if we're not climate criminals ourselves.
Well, I've said
We're,
that. That's what I've said to you before. Is that why we're going to be punished?
yeah.
We're going to be admonished, and when they're going to say, "Well,
you can't say that. This guy, the dude.
you can change that." Yeah, there. No, this is where they're going to say,
This guy, the dude.
This dude guy, right? His grandson's sitting here like with his feet up with a big white Panama hat, looking at the shipping coming through the buddy in Hobart, while the dude himself, the money that went to help his grandson, came from living in a rich state with this basin, Mallee Basin,
The Galilee Basin.
Galilee Basin, right? So karma's coming, you know.
Oh, okay. So
Karma's
I deserve.
Yeah.
I don't deserve to live in Tasmania and.
Well, no, you can go and live there.
Because basically, what it comes down to me, and you'd understand a little about this. Yeah, we've now got skin in the game as grandparents. It's not yet. Our lives are going to be over one day soon, but we've now got skin in the game. We've got not only children but now grandchildren.
Yeah.
And so we talk about what the Earth is going to look like in 2100. We've actually got skin in the game because we've now got DNA lineage who'll possibly be alive at that time, along with their children's children, if they're lucky enough to have babies.
Well, the other thing too is that there's Albanese's already looking at inheritance laws here. This is a worldwide thing in Western countries, because they're saying we've got these fat cats, these baby boomers, right? They somehow sat and watched the price of their house go up, the value of their house, and they're sitting on a nest egg, even if it's just an ordinary house of $1 million plus, right? And so what they're doing is they're saying we're sick and tired of generational wealth. You're familiar with the term, generational wealth. This is basically unfair to someone, again, who was born in Africa or born in a delta, in a shack in a delta of Southeast Asia. So they've come here, and they're coming here every year, and they're going to every Western country, and they roll in there, and so they go to work, and they're working alongside your grandson or my granddaughter, and then my granddaughter or your grandson comes in one day and says, "Oh, look at this. My granddad died, and I just got a slice of a $3 million property." I said, "But that's not fair, because we've migrated, and their mum and dad just came just to work as cleaners or something. We don't have that. That's not fair."
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at in a long-winded way, good luck thinking that you can buy an investment property in Hobart and it's going to be there in 100 years.
Yeah.
When you die, because we're this way, even when you and I die, well, maybe not so much because I'm older than you, like I might get out of it, but certainly when you die or people your age group die, you're going to be very surprised at how little of that you can pass on, because they got you in the sights. There's not enough. We didn't have enough kids, right? So there's not enough.
What if I live in a rural area of Tasmania and all I've got is Earthships?
You won't be allowed to build them.
No, you won't.
Yeah,
I'll be doing it in secret.
Yeah, no, because they've already they've had bulldozers go in Nottingham here in America. I've seen bulldozers. Someone built their own off-grid house.
Yeah, not up to spec.
And next thing, the government's running
bulldozer. Look at this thing. It's a bloody classic. It's a proven technology. But okay, well, nice to talk to you, Uncle Kev.
I'm sorry that I was a bit. I didn't agree with everything you say, but I'll defend to the right. I'll defend with my life your right to say it.